TBA. Together again.
Hello, my name is Jose Antonio Diaz, and welcome to Developing a Middle School and High School Jazz Curriculum. This clinic is about starting a jazz program once again post-pandemic. Many of us had students that were virtually and didn't get an opportunity to work with a teacher on the jazz curriculum, so many of the concepts that we all have been working on have been lost, and more importantly, some of the kids didn't even get an opportunity to maybe practice on the instrument because of the situation at home. So what I would like to do is to give you some ideas and some things that I think would work in terms of developing our curriculum and in creating for developing our jazz ensembles. So what do we do post-pandemic? I say we start from the beginning. Work all the basic fundamentals and take nothing for granted. Because we have to remember that all of our students didn't get an opportunity to work with us. So there's a lot of gaps in their learning, and we're going to have to try to gather all of that, especially if we're in middle school where we have to really work with our beginners very well in this situation. So we're going to have to take everything from the beginning and work all the basic fundamentals so that way we can cover any other gaps that they may have in their learning. We're taking nothing for granted. If possible, if you have a budget for it, I would buy a school set of rhythm section instruments such as a 4-string bass guitar, a guitar semi-hollow body or hollow body, or a good electric piano, and a drum set with a bass drum no bigger than 20 inches. That way you have a quality set of instruments that you can work with your rhythm section, because some of the students as they get their basses or maybe a guitar, most of them will be maybe rock oriented or something that just won't work for the kind of sound that we're looking for. And of course, many of the students now are looking at purchasing, some bass guitars that may be 5-string or 6-string. And really for the level that we're looking at, I think we should all be working with the 4-string bass guitar. That way you can also make sure that we have a consistent quality of instruments, and especially bass guitar, which helps to establish the tuning for the group. We also should have a fingering chart for all instruments, especially bass, guitar, and piano, to help the students along when you're not able to be with them, and as a reminder for them in terms of what the names of the strings are, the different notes on the frets as they go through on the bass and guitar, and also for the piano, so that way when we have different pieces of music that would just list the chords, then they have something that they can look at and be able to put their fingers where the keys are with a particular chord chart. So we have to remember that many of the students did not play their instruments during the pandemic, and we've gotten some of this basic information in terms of fingerings, including some of our brass people, woodwind people, and so forth. The other thing I also want you to keep in mind is that jazz ensemble is not an instrumentation, it's a genre. So please allow any interested students that you may have, whether it's a bassoonist, a flute player, bass clarinet player, there's always a way to work all of these kids in playing on their instruments, and will work out really well in the jazz ensemble. Understanding jazz. Jazz is deeply rooted in the auditory tradition of African music. The African approach of master-student relationship is one of observation and imitation. So as we work through developing our curriculum, we have to keep in mind that music was taught by rote, and the master insisted that the student imitated in a verbatim manner the exact phrase with the same feeling and nuances of the performance. Generations of jazz musicians have learned this way by copying from the mentor, imitating and speaking the vocabulary very much like we do when we speak our English language. We just copy and we imitate. Many of the great jazz musicians were not thinking about the theory behind the improvised solos, but instead rely heavily on the vocabulary they develop. The premise was that if it sounded good, then the right note choices were made. We have to think about that when we're speaking. We just think about the vocabulary that we know and we can communicate. So when we think about performing improvisation, from my perspective, the rhythm aspect is more important than melodic aspect, because rhythmically, if we get it to sound where it works for the concept of swing or whatever genre of jazz that we're currently performing, there is a higher probability that what the student performs is going to sound good. Because many times we will have students that will actually play all the right notes that work in the chord, but yet they don't swing. So we need to think about how we phrase things, how we talk about things with the nuances through our instruments. In general, we would never use a word we didn't know the meaning of for fear of looking and sounding foolish to others. Jazz performance is very much the same. One must learn the vocabulary defined by the masters and innovators of this art to create the authentic feeling of the music. When Marcella said at one point, in jazz, improvisation is a matter of just making any old thing up. Jazz, like any language, has its own grammar and vocabulary. There is no right or wrong, just some choices that are better than others. One of my mentors was the incredible Alvin Batiste, and he would always say that there are no wrong notes in jazz, just mispronunciation. And what he was talking about was developing a rhythmic concept that will help you create the swing feel through a jazz dialect. So what is swing? For the purpose of this clinic, we'll just talk about swing as a form of jazz music where where the rhythmic pulse and interpretation of the melodic and harmonic material creates a feeling of rocking back and forth. Okay. There is a lot more to swing and the development of swing, but that would be a totally different clinic, and it would take a while for us to really dig in deep. So we're just talking about getting the rhythmic feel of swing to just sound good. So how do we develop swing? We develop swing by developing a jazz dialect. Jazz dialect is the musical pronunciation of the jazz genre. The pronunciation of the language is acquired through the use of syllables that help create the natural feeling of swing. Developing jazz dialect is jazz like any other music genre gets its own momentum for interpretation of its rhythm. Rhythm is fundamental to creating the feeling for swing. With that in mind, let's begin with developing the jazz language and understanding the rhythmic feel of swing. Developing a jazz dialect naturally creates a rhythmic understanding through the feeling, the pulse of the music. The conceptual approach of this jazz dialect is rooted in the feel of the rhythm of the spoken syllables. This approach can help develop a natural feel to swing and help others to understand the concept of swing. How do we start? We create a culture for learning jazz by developing lesson plans for your jazz class or rehearsals that provides an opportunity for your students to learn the essential aspects of the genre rather than just randomly playing through charts. When creating a lesson plan, consider including the following elements: introduction, objectives, vocabulary, modeling, assessment, guided practice, independent practice, review, and closure. The following is an example of a first day lesson plan for jazz ensemble. This particular lesson will be concentrating on developing rhythmic independence. Let's begin. The objective of the lesson. The student will discover an understanding of the auditory and rhythmic approach to jazz by listening and imitating. The vocabulary that we'll use for this lesson will be jazz rhythm dialect, the musical pronunciation of the jazz genre, The pronunciation of the jazz language is acquired through the use of syllables that help create the natural rhythmic feel of swing. Swing, a form of jazz music where the rhythmic pulse and interpretation of melodic and harmonic material creates a feeling of rocking back and forth. Rhythm, the melodic and harmonic pattern of a regular and irregular pulse in music caused by the occurrence of strong and weak beats. Jazz gets its momentum from the interpretation of its rhythm. Rhythm is fundamental to creating the feeling for swing. Developing a jazz rhythm dialect naturally creates a rhythmic understanding through feeling the pulse of the music. The conceptual approach of this jazz rhythm dialect is rooted in the feel of the rhythm of spoken syllables. This approach can help develop a natural feel to swing and help young players understand the concept of swing. Lesson development, rhythmic coordination. The following exercise is intended to teach rhythmic coordination that any instrumentalist or vocalist can use to start the journey of developing the concept of swing by listening, observing, and imitating the language of jazz. Note: the purpose is to listen to the cohesiveness of the players and the ability to perform as one unit while performing with individual freedom. Let's play a recording of a medium swing chart and ask the students to snap their fingers on beats 2 and 4. Please note, this exercise is not an option and should not be taken for granted. It is crucial that everyone participates. Regardless the level of the group, there will be someone in the group that can benefit from this exercise. The following is an assessment of the lesson thus far. What is the fundamental to creating the feeling of swing? A. Melody. B. Harmony. C. Rhythm. The next assessment question: what beats did you hear the finger snap on? A. Beats 1 and 3. B. Beats 2 and 3. C. Beats 2 and 4. The following exercises are designed to help students develop rhythmic independence and a relaxed approach to the rhythm of swing. Perform the exercises until all students have achieved snapping their fingers and performing the syllable dot.
Da. 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 da, 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 da,
So we have our students the first day of class or rehearsal, and we have to consider what it is that we're going to play for our music. So what music should we play? Should we play an easy arrangement of something, or should we just listen to music and just talk about the genre? In my opinion, I feel that we should get the students playing immediately, but what we should do is have the students play a head tune. So something that's really short, something that they could memorize fairly quickly, and something that they can grab a hold of, and as a matter of fact, every student is learning the melody to something, which is cool because most of the time when we play in an ensemble that's fully scored, most of the time only a few people get to play the melody at any one point, and there's a lot of situations where kids can go through an entire year and not actually play the melody of any tune or learn any tunes melodically because they just weren't the person that played the first part, the lead part, or the feature instrument. So, in my opinion, I would say do a lead sheet, a head tune, and I actually like to begin my classes in the beginning of the year, especially with blues tunes based on 4-bar riffs. And some of the tunes that I like to use, and there are quite a few 4-bar riff blues tunes, But the ones I like are Sea Jam Blues by Duke Ellington, Centerpiece by Harry Sweet Edson, Night Train by Jimmy Forrest, That's What I'm Talking About by Shorty Rogers, Sunny Moon for Two by Sonny Rollins, Splanky by Neil Hefti, and Bags Groove by Milt Jackson. These are some really great tunes. They're classic. They're something. These are materials that every student should know. They're really easy to learn, and you'll be able to find plenty of examples of it on the internet and in other video sources, benchmark performances of these pieces. In order not to get in any kind of trouble here with copyright, I just wrote just a real simple blues tune. We're just calling it First Day Blues. Okay, and as you can see, it's just a 4-bar riff that will be played, and I have the guitar chords in there. I have the piano with just voicings with in whole notes, and then I have the bass guitar playing quarter notes just on the root. This is the best way to start kids, very young kids, in the rhythm section with the entire band, because you'll have a band that will be able to play, for the most part, simple notation and with limited range, faster in general, because it would be in unison. But then you need to have something for your rhythm section to be able to find it and not get frustrated. And this is one really good way to get kids involved. With the basses especially, we want them to get very confident and get to the point where they start to develop a walking bass line. And when we can start associating the notes that they play to the notes in the chord, it's real easy for kid to see that we have a B flat 7 chord, and you just tell them just play B flat for 4 beats, and the next chord, when they see E flat, just tell them, okay, just a string on the same fret and play E flat. So that makes it a very easy movement, because they're just moving from B flat to E flat on over, and they will be able to keep that pose. Okay, and your piano player, guitar player will be able to give you that good harmonic structure there, and take the tempo relatively so that way no one feels. So in the beginning, I would just have the bass player just play roots all the way through the blues form, the piano whole notes all the way through the blues form, and guitar just strumming quarter notes with the bass, Freddie Green style, all the way through the form of the blues, while the winds are playing their 4-bar riffs, over the 4 measures. And every time that there's a change, they'll still be playing that 4-bar riffs, and it works really well. As the group gets better, as the rhythm section gets better, then I start adding a little bit more rhythmic variants for them. For the piano, they would be playing like this dotted quarter note followed by an 8th note, and then 1, and just throughout the whole blues form to start getting into that whole comping concept. What I have the bass player do at this point is that on beat 4, they're playing B flat quarter notes the entire first measure, but on beat 4 of that measure, I would ask them to approach the next note that they have coming up, which would be E flat, to play a fret above the note to come down. So then you get this whole chromatic thing kind of happening. And I would do that on every beat 4 through the entire form to help create that approach of chromaticism, to get him or her moving through the form and having more of a harmonic approach and more interest than just playing the four quarter notes when they basically started. Here are some other thoughts to consider when creating a lesson plans and developing your curriculum for your jazz program. Improvisation. Integrate improvisation into the rehearsal every day. Improvisation is like having a conversation with others. There is a listening and responding in the jazz vernacular. This is something that should occur every day with every single one of your students to make them feel comfortable that this is part of the process of developing this art form. As a matter of fact, the improvisation is what makes jazz jazz. So let's get everyone involved every single day, doing something very simplistic and having them become very comfortable with the idea of just creating something in the moment with a vocabulary they already learned. Ensemble technique. Understanding of rhythm and phrasing and how to speak the language of jazz is paramount. Addressing it every day, as we have to remind students daily the importance of the jazz dialect to developing the concept of jazz performance. We must be proactive and insistent about the music being played a certain way or excellence is not achieved. Encourage students to individually be proactive about tuning, balance, style, and interpretation. Literature and listening. There's an abundant selection of jazz material that will meet the needs of virtually every conceivable configuration of instrumentation of a school jazz ensembles from middle school to high school. I'm a firm believer that every student in the jazz program should learn jazz standards. Play riff tunes with the entire ensemble learning the melody. This is a great way to start all students. It easily fits all instrumentation, and it's a great way to make sure that all musicians in the program learn the melody of songs. These standard chart arrangements are available from every level from easy to advanced. Creating a jazz culture within your school is an exciting opportunity for both you and your students. I know for me personally, it's very exciting every single opportunity I get to work with young people in developing their skills and their excitement in the genre. Kids become very excited and creative. They become self-reliant. They become independent thinkers. And it's just so much fun just watching them share the vocabulary they just learned and be able to just be creative together when they become involved in working to small groups. I encourage all of you to create a jazz program at your school. And please, if at all possible, don't wait till the second semester to get started. Get started right away and just enjoy the journey throughout the year and watch how much your kids will grow. If you ever need any assistance from me, please reach out. I'll be more than glad to help you in your journey. Thank you so much for watching this particular clinic. It is my pleasure to present this to you, and I had a great time. I hope you did too. Thank you.